This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing today? This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I am, of course, Joe Gaither. You are the listener, the viewer. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. You're watching us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube at Joe Gaither6 or on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody who subscribed, rated, and reviewed the show on any of those various platforms. You can always jump in and be a part of the show on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Joe Gaither6. You can jump in with your comments, questions, queries, and complaints, as it's a beautiful Tuesday, still morning here in Arizona, a little bit of a midday for you guys in Alabama. We are on our way out of Arizona today. We got to watch a great, really, I know the score was only 15 points, and UConn kind of dominated the game, but I felt like it was a privilege to watch last night's national championship game between UConn and Purdue. And while Purdue wasn't really up to snuff and didn't really have quite enough, obviously their guards didn't really get into the game really at all. UConn just so good. So what a privilege it was to be here in Arizona to watch both Final Four games and the national championship game last night. Obviously, we want to say a big old congratulations to UConn. Really the best team for the last 2 years, and Dan Hurley is an absolute madman. So if you want to give me your reactions to the game or your thoughts on last night's game, or maybe you didn't even pay attention because Alabama was already eliminated, but you want to go ahead and give me your thoughts on the game, you can chime in at Joe Gaither6 on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, whatever you like. Today's show is going to be kind of a wrap-up. Let's put a big bow on college basketball season. Obviously, we won't ever be done talking about college basketball because I love it, and I think Alabama's in a great position, and we'll continue to talk about that. But let's kind of encapsulate the last 24 hours. So what are my notes? My notes are potential transfers, Umar Ballo and Toby Awaka. My next note is Nate not going to Kentucky. My next note is Kentucky's candidates. Then it's what's it like being preseason favorites in basketball. And then we got a little football basketball comparison, and we can look at the college basketball's final coaches poll. Let's start with the biggest news, and that is Nate Oats. Nate Oats yesterday was in the media, was basically in the rumor mill. In the rumor mill because if you're living under a rock, John Calipari is leaving Kentucky to go to Arkansas, and that is a story in and of itself. I think that's fascinating. I think that's hilarious, honestly. Arkansas, you just sort of ran Eric Musselman out of Fayetteville, and yeah, he took you to 2 Elite Eights, and I know it was a really bad year this year for your Razorback fans. But what has John Calipari done over the last couple of years that gives you any real encouragement that he's going to be able to take Arkansas back to the Final Four? I don't really know. I think that's absolutely a hilarious hire. But look, he knows exactly the NIL game, and he knows how to recruit. That is still absolutely an unquestioned fact. And he'll be able to do that very, very well at Arkansas with the Waltons and the Tysons behind him. So, okay, that aside, Arkansas's got their man. They've got like one guy on the roster, maybe no guys on the roster. I think my man Blake Byler told me that their recruit yesterday, Deacon, their only commit was released from his national letter of intent yesterday or the day before. So I don't think they have a roster at all. But Calipari is going to go over to Arkansas, and he's probably going to take Boogie Flan. He's probably going to take a lot of that Kentucky, number 2, number 1 recruiting class, and a couple of 5 stars in it. Boogie Flan particularly. I think he was allegedly getting a $700,000 offer to go to Kentucky. I'm sure that's going to be bumped up to what? $750,000, $800,000, $1 million to just go over to Fayetteville instead. So, all right, that's one part of the equation. And now Alabama's got their newest rival, no longer divisions of the SEC, but SEC Western rival. Arkansas has a coach. And look, if you're an Alabama basketball fan or pay attention to SEC basketball at all, it's Alabama hates Tennessee, Auburn, and Arkansas the most. And so that just gives Alabama another reason to get after the Razorbacks with John Calipari now as their head coach. But what really worried Alabama fans and what really sent the rumor mill swirling yesterday was Kentucky. Kentucky having to fill a vacancy. And as of this recording, 10:20 a.m. on the West Coast, They have not filled the vacancy. And what I've been reading from the Kentucky side of things is Calipari hasn't even informed the Kentucky administration, Mitch Barnhart, that he's leaving. And so because he hasn't made that announcement or hasn't let them know that he's resigning to leave and take the job at Arkansas, our Kentucky can't get a really official ball rolling on a coaching search. What did we hear yesterday? We heard that Nate Oats was one of the prime candidates to replace John Calipari at Kentucky. And whether that be the Kentucky interest or Nate Oats' interest or just college basketball fans putting two and two together, one of the hottest young names in college basketball and a blue blood vacancy. You can say what you like about Kentucky. They are still a blue blood in the sport and a giant in the sport. But what happens last night just before the national championship game gets started? Nate Oats goes out onto social media and makes an announcement that he is staying at the University of Alabama. Let's read it for everybody who didn't get to see it. I believe I did hit the retweet button on it, so I should be able to find it fairly easily. Rolling on down. Yeah, perfect. Nate Oats. This is from Nate_Oats. Bama Nation. I am fully committed to this team and to this university. We have already accomplished so many great things here, and there is nothing I want more than for the University of Alabama to win its first national championship in men's basketball. Despite any rumors on the contrary, rest assured that I will continue that pursuit as your head coach. And so with that in, a couple things happened. First, I do think Nate was approached and, hey, would you be interested in taking the Kentucky job? And you'd be a fool not to listen to a blue blood. But it sounds like the Alabama boosters really stepped up and showed some big-time support for Nate Oats. And just a wild sense of circumstances here. Wild sense of circumstances that you have a combination of Nate Oats taking Alabama, really proving to the Alabama fan base and to the Alabama boosters and alums and people who maybe even are casual fans that he is that top 4, top 5, top 10 coach in college basketball, that he is one of those top up-and-comers by taking Alabama to a Final Four. I think if you've been paying attention to the Crimson Tide's program over the last couple of years, namely last year and I guess the Herb Jones Sweet 16 year, the first double SEC title, if you were paying attention, I think you always knew that Coach Oats was going to get Alabama into this position. But there was always sort of that feel that, oh, the Crimson Tide is cursed. The Crimson Tide can't get past the Sweet 16. Oh, you only got to the Elite Eight one time. Oh, the Crimson Tide has a ceiling. And I think Nate Oats breaking down that barrier this year. Now, okay, there are a number of job openings, not just this Kentucky opening, but we had Louisville, we had Michigan open. We've had a number of job openings that, are bigger name openings. Now with Kentucky opening, Nate Oats going to the Final Four. I think the Alabama fan base, the general Alabama fan base, already liked him very, very much. But you go from, 2 double SEC championships in a span of, 3 years. And then from this year, you miss out on the SEC titles, but you get the contract extension. And I think people were a little bit leery. Oh, why are you giving him a contract extension? He hasn't taken Alabama to a Final Four. He hasn't taken Alabama to an Elite Eight, yada, yada, yada. You heard some detractors. You get the contract extension. Coach Oats and the team really rallies around themselves and really, I think, came together at the right time. And you had some nice circumstances with some of the draws and the opponents that they had in the tournament. But it's just amazing timing that Coach Oats can get to Alabama to a Final Four the same year that Kentucky, Louisville, and Michigan all open up. You have massive support from the athletic department already. I think internally you always had support for Nate Oats. But then externally, the fan base as a whole, the booster base, maybe the we only like football base, paid attention to basketball and gotten in on Nate Oats and says, oh my gosh, this is a lot of fun. And so when Kentucky opens, all the circumstances align just perfectly that Nate Oats has really no interest. He's feeling the love here in Alabama. I mean, you look at Joey Donovan, and you can take him for what it's worth, but he is oftentimes very plugged in. Joey Donovan yesterday in his Discord basically saying that Nate Oats is not going to Kentucky simply because he doesn't want to. He's happy at Alabama. He has the things he needs, and he wants to continue to grow here. So Nate's not going to Kentucky, and I just think it's very crazy to live in a world where the Alabama basketball coach You can say he didn't turn down Kentucky, but read between the tea leaves. Whether it was an official offer made to him or not, he rebuffed them. He rebuffed Kentucky basketball to stay to stay with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And let's just be honest with ourselves. That's not normal. It's not normal. It's not normal at all because look, you guys know me if you've listened or watched the program on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. If you listen to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon, you know me. You know I love Alabama basketball. I'm covering Alabama football. I'm covering all the rest of the Alabama sports, but I just have this weird. I love it. But like I'm objective enough to say that the Kentucky basketball job it's a blue blood job. It's one of the top 5 jobs in the country. It's a better basketball job than Alabama. But Alabama has grown itself, has built itself. Coach Oats has built the program to such a level where there's nothing that Coach Oats can do at Kentucky that he cannot do here at Alabama. Nothing. You got Brandon Miller, a top 2 pick. Okay, you look at Kentucky, you talk about lottery picks. Well, Alabama's got a couple lottery picks with Josh Primo and Brandon Miller. You put Noah Clowney into the first round as well. You've got G Leaguers all over the place. You've got French players all over the place. You've got guys in Europe playing professionally. So your personal development of the rosters is good enough here at Alabama to where you can get guys to their goals. And what? You say, oh, well, you can't get to a Final Four at Alabama. You can no longer say that. You can't say that. Oh, you can't win an SEC championship. Well, he's done that. Literally, there's nothing that you can do at Kentucky that you can't do at Alabama. The biggest thing, I guess, is the NIL fund. Kentucky probably, no, Kentucky does have a better NIL backing for basketball than Alabama football. Than Alabama basketball. Alabama basketball. But I do think that Nate Oats received a pretty sizable donation into his NIL fund yesterday. And I think that's going to be very, very interesting to see how that gets utilized over the spring and summer. Because on Sunday's program, we talked about the guys that I think will leave and the guys that I think will stay. And you can go back and view that on whatever platform that you like. We went through all 12. Sorry, Kai Spears, I didn't mention you. I'm sorry. We went through all 12 scholarship guys and whether we thought that they would stay or go. But I wonder if the NIL bump helps. I did have Mark Sears in my I think he's going to stay camp. I wonder if that NIL bump that Nate Oats got yesterday is really going to help keep Mark Sears in a Crimson Tide uniform, or does it help you go shopping in the transfer portal? If Mark Sears says, "No, I'm going on in the G League. I'm going to pursue professional opportunities," great. You wish him well. What a player. What a special player. And then you take the NIL bump that you got yesterday, and you go out to Arizona and you say, "Oh, Umar Ballo, Mr. 7'1", do you want to come be Alabama's defensive rim protector next year?" Is he a great offensive player? No. But you don't need that. You need the rim protector. You need somebody who's going to clean up the mistakes when the guards get beat. And so you take that NIL bump and you go out and get a guy like Umar Ballo. Charlie Donovan saying yesterday that Umar Ballo was contacted by Alabama, but who wouldn't contact him? He's one of the best bigs in the country, and I'd imagine that every program that takes themselves seriously is going to reach out to him and ask, what's it going to take for you to transfer to our program? Another interesting name in the transfer portal that jumped in the transfer portal today, Toby Awaka. Toby Awaka, Tennessee sophomore. He goes in the portal. Let me pull. What am I wanting? That's what I'm wanting right there. Toby Awaka he's played 2 years out of Bronx, New York, and he was a 3-star prospect, 6'8", 240, and he's been with Tennessee for 2 seasons now, averaging 5 points, 4 and 5 rebounds a game, basically. It seems like Jonas Adu, and there's another forward, but all of them essentially are, somebody's got to go for Tennessee to get more playing time, and Toby Awaka is that guy. Now, is he going to be a great fit at Alabama? I have no idea. I'm not going to say that. What I am saying is there are a lot of big men. There are a lot of big men getting out there, and it's going to be a really, really fun time. I think I think this week. I think this week you're going to see this roster really change. Maybe starting today, you're going to see some names jump into the transfer portal from the Alabama side of things. You give the one day's glow, you give the Sunday, Monday glow of finishing up the season. I think today you're going to see some Alabama players go into the transfer portal. But look, it's going to be a great opportunity for Alabama to go back into the transfer portal themselves. You're going to lose guys. You're going to go in there and you're going to shop for some of the more talented players in the country. And just how fun is it? Look, how fun is it for Alabama to be in these conversations? You see top name transfer portal player, and what? I know the transfer portal wasn't around 10 years ago, but would Alabama have been in the conversation for any of these top end transfers? Oh, I would venture to say not really. No, only special circumstances. And the program over the last handful of years, really 5, 6 years, you got to give Avery Johnson a little credit for raising the profile of the program. Obviously, the loss to Norfolk State in the NIT, pretty dang painful, but definitely raised the profile of the program while he was here. They got a lot of great talent that Nate Oats turned into some winners a couple of seasons later. Let's talk about the Kentucky candidate since we're kind of on this offshoot. Kentucky, okay, since Nate Oats is now off the board, they say the beat writers, the people in the know up in Big Blue Nation, are talking about Scott Drew, Billy Donovan, and Dan Hurley. Yesterday after the game, Dan Hurley laughed at that question. Laughed. Like audibly laughed. And it was not a ha 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 ha, maybe. It was a you're bleeping crazy. You're a crazy person for suggesting that. Now, he kind of attributed his happiness to his wife and his wife's happiness to being in Hartford and being, that's stores. Hartford, Connecticut, or stores? I think it's stores, Connecticut. But they love it. They apparently love it there. They're New Jersey people. I think they're right at home. And why in the world would you leave UConn for, I know I said Kentucky's a blue blood top end job, and it is, but it is kind of a mess at the moment. I think the program is in a bit of a state of mess at the moment with what they want their program to look like. Do they want to be the homes of the one and dones? Obviously, that was Calipari's kind of a calling card for a long time. What do they want to be? I think Kentucky's kind of in a big mess. UConn clearly defined. That's what stood out to me last night about UConn. I mean, it stood out to me on Saturday night as well, and it stood out to me in November of 2022 when Alabama played Dan Hurley and UConn in a Phil Knight Invitational. They're just so clean. They're just so precise. I just said Kentucky's got a little bit of a messy program. Seems kind of a little bit dirty situation right there. UConn, everything they did last night and everything they did on Saturday was first class to maximum intensity, to maximum precision, and really disciplined. Really, really disciplined. And I felt that way even after the game. After the game, I was able to be on the court to just watch the celebrations. Obviously, I'm not there covering UConn. It was kind of a moment for me to just soak it in. I took a lot of pictures. You can see that at Joe Gaither 6 on the Twitter machine if you want to look at any of those pictures that I took. But I was just soaking it in. But what I noticed, I'm standing 3 feet from Dan Hurley. I'm standing 3 feet from Donovan Clingan, from these great players, from Tristan Newton, from Stephon Castle, and watching these guys. And yeah, they celebrated, but it just seemed like everything that they did before the game, business-like. In the game, business-like. After the game, business-like. They even celebrated like it was just old hat. And really just a great experience last night in State Farm Stadium. So, no, I don't think Dan Hurley is going to be leaving UConn to go to Kentucky. There are rumors that Kentucky will offer him $12 million. Okay, money's not everything. Look, you want to take that $12 million and straighten out that mess, clean up that program, be my guest, Dan Hurley. But I would be very, 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 very surprised if he were to do that. Now, Billy Donovan's an interesting name because obviously his college success. He's been in the NBA for a hot minute now. Oklahoma City Thunder, Orlando Magic, and the Chicago Bulls currently. And the Bulls are, look, the last I checked, the Bulls were okay, not great. Let's find out. NBA standings, because I am not really an NBA fan. So let's find out. Let's bring you the news. The Bulls are in 9th place at 37-41. So I think it's the top 8 make the playoffs, and then you get some play-in games. Yeah, 9 and 10 are play-in games. So they are in that play-in perspective, and I know the Bulls have been growing their program. It'll be an interesting time. It'll be an interesting time if Billy Donovan wants to leave there. The biggest thing is I think Billy Donovan got out of college basketball because of some of the hassle, the transfer portal, and the future, the expectations. And, well, really, I think he got out of it to try his hand at the NBA. And he's, NBA is straight up basketball. He's enjoying himself. I'll be, I'll just go ahead and say I'll be surprised if it's Billy Donovan as well. And then lastly, Scott Drew is the last name on their big headliner list. We did fly in here to Phoenix with Scott Drew. Very ironic, coincidental that this has all happened. He was on our Thursday flight. They're in the back, not in first class, and so I don't know. I don't know if that's the kind of guy that wants to go take the Kentucky pressure. Now, can he do it? Is he a good coach? Is he organized enough to do it? Yes, I do think he is, and obviously won a national championship at Baylor. But Kentucky is a different animal. And I think that's part of the reason that Nate Oats turned it down. Because look at yourself here at Alabama, Nate Oats. Right here at Alabama, you have gone 4 straight NCAA tournaments. Alabama's record is 6 in a row. You've gone to 3 Sweet 16s now and 1 Final Four now. Let's say next year's a bad year. I don't think it's going to be a bad year, but we're just talking hypotheticals. Let's just say it's a bad year. Alabama finishes 7th in the SEC. Oh my gosh, terrible, absolutely awful. Let's say it's a bad year. Is he going to be on the hot seat here in Alabama? Not in the slightest. People will say, "Oh, it's just a blip on the radar. He's going to get it back. Look how well he did in the transfer portal. Look how good he is at roster construction, and maybe he just didn't get it right." I mean, look, Alabama's bad year. You take out the first year because, in my opinion, that's when a coach is really growing and building his team. But your bad year is what? The J.D. Davison, Jaden Shackelford, Javon Quinterly season. And yeah, was that an extremely frustrating year from a fan standpoint? Yeah. But what ended up happening? You made the tournament. You finished I think you finished 7th in the SEC, 6th or 7th in the SEC that year. You didn't win either league title. That's okay. But you did get to the tournament. And yeah, Cormac Ryan shot the lights out in San Diego and eliminated you in the first round, upset you in the first round. But let's be honest with ourselves. 5 years ago, that's all you wanted. Get us to the tournament. Get to the tournament. That's all you wanted. And I thought, and really, if you get to the tournament, roll the dice. Roll the dice in the tournament. Have a decent run. So, Nate Oats, your potential hypothetical bad year next year, just for sake of conversation, what's it going to do for your job security? Absolutely nothing. You do that at Kentucky every single time you get eliminated early at Kentucky. It's, oh, should you move on? Oh, is he washed? Oh, Kentucky's bigger than this. Kentucky basketball, bigger than any one man. It gets, I mean, Calipari's been dealing it with for the last 4 or 5 years. That's the reason why he was leaving to go join an in-conference team. Because, look, I think he looks himself in the mirror and realizes I got 1 more year on the Kentucky leash right here. And if I don't capitalize on this year with what would have been the minimum to keep him around? A Sweet 16 run? Yeah, probably a Sweet 16 run and what? Either half an SEC title? I think that the pressure was really, 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 really high for John Calipari, especially for this coming up season. And he says, "Oh, well, I can go to Arkansas, where they just had a terrible year and missed the tournament, and Eric Musselman left, and every single player left. And, oh, there's a program that's ripe for I don't even want to say rebuilding, because they just had 1 bad year, and they've been a real good program, or they've been a pretty good program under Eric Musselman. They've got all the tools to still be great." Calipari says, "Oh, I'll go over to Arkansas and give those guys something that they haven't tasted in a long, long time." I mean, what was their national title? 1990, 91, somewhere in there. Arkansas national championship. It was basketball 94. Excuse me. Yeah, it's been a long time since those Razorbacks have tasted success. And Calipari can go over there and be a hero quickly, or he can stay in Kentucky and just live on the hot seat. I think Nate Oats realizes the resources that he has here at Alabama, and realizes the success that has been here at Alabama, and just the momentum of the fan base. The momentum of the fan. Like, look, I don't want to be hyperbolic and say that this is Coach Krzyzewski in the '80s, but it feels that way to me. If Alabama can retain Nate Oats, for long term, then what do you have here? We were talking about it at dinner a couple days ago. If Nate Oats is here for 10 years, how many more Final Fours does he go to? And I think you can bet on two at least. Look, it's a really hard thing to get to a Final Four, but he's shown that he's really, really great at game planning. He's really, really good at recruiting. And so you just keep giving him more resources and more time. 10 chances. I think he gets to the Final Four two more times. This could be early. Like, Nate Oats isn't even 50 yet. Is he 47? Nate Oats, I think he's 47. He's 49. He's 49. And he'll be 50 a week after my birthday in October. So you can have Nate Oats here in Tuscaloosa for a long, 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 long time. What's the biggest things that I think might take him away? Obviously, Kentucky wasn't big enough to take him away, and if Kentucky's not big enough to take him away, then I don't think much is. I think you got to worry a little bit about Michigan State when Tom Izzo retires, heading back to the Michigan area where he's from. But really, you look at Coach Oates' family dynamic, and he's got what, three daughters? Two are in college at the University of Alabama at the moment, and one is in high school in the Tuscaloosa area. I sort of have a feeling or have a little bit of an indication that I think he wants to keep the stability of the family during the adolescent age of his children. That's just kind of my takeaway from the outside looking in. Now, that could be totally different. You throw a great opportunity his way, and that could totally change. Obviously, the two college-age girls, they can stay in Tuscaloosa and go to UA and be no problem. Be distance away from the parents, but that'd be an issue a hurdle to overcome. I kind of think that Coach Oates is pretty settled here in Tuscaloosa. He's said over and over and over and over and over again how much he loves the weather compared to the north. And then I think he's been not so shy about maybe the political ideology lining up with his own ideology here in Alabama. And that's a-okay. You want to be at home, and I think that's part of what makes him feel at home in Tuscaloosa. So you're thinking about other opportunities. Michigan State might be one. The NBA is probably your most likely next step for Nate Oats. He just gives off NBA head coach. Now, maybe not in 5 years, but maybe in 10 when the youngest daughter gets all the way through school and he's looking for further opportunities. But for right now, Alabama retains Nate Oats, gives him allegedly a pretty large NIL bump so that he can operate in the transfer portal and operate in recruiting going forward. And we'll see how many more times he can get us to the Final Four. Look, we're here in Phoenix, and I want to encourage you. Next year is in San Antonio. It's a 2-hour flight from Tuscaloosa. And will Alabama be in it? I have no idea. But I just want to let you know from my own perspective. I've been to a national championship game. I've been to some big bowl games. The Final Four, this has been the greatest sporting event I've ever attended in my young life, for sure. The pageantry, the fan experience, yes, the media experience has been pretty good as well. Just the everything that they've done here has made me just, and maybe it goes into my background as being a longtime NCAA tournament fan with 2000s Mateen Cleaves and I just one shining moment last night was pure joy watching it on the court, and then we're looking right to my left and seeing all the UConn kids just so excited for their moment. Watching one shining moment. I would encourage you guys, look, if Alabama's in it, definitely get to San Antonio next year. But even if the Crimson Tide's not in it, it'll be a fun experience, and I'm going to try my best to be back at the Final Four as soon as possible. All right, what else is on my list? We talked about transfers just a little bit. Look, I think Alabama is going to be in a position to where every big name transfer, if Nate Oats and his staff evaluates that they can be helpful to the Crimson Tide, I think Alabama's at least going to be in on them and going to at least have a phone call and have a little bit of a discussion. That is what you've gained over these 5 years, especially over these 3 weeks. So Marbalo, Tobiawaka, you're maybe one of those guys, and maybe somebody else. Speaking of transfers, Aiden Holloway jumping in the transfer portal for Auburn not too long ago. So Auburn down to no point guards on the roster. The transfer portal is going to be tricky for everyone. And even Dan Hurley yesterday at the postgame press conference said, "Oh, I'm dreading going into the portal. I don't want to go in the portal, but we have to this week." Obviously, they're losing a lot at UConn, and they're going to want to rebuild very, very quickly. So we'll keep all your names, and we'll keep up with everybody who's on the Alabama's radar right here at BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. You're going to want to follow my friend Blake Byler 45. He's all over it. He's all over it. And so he's going to be all over it for us at BamaCentral, and I'm getting really a lot of secondhand information from him. So I really appreciate his help making me look somewhat smart. Let's keep it going here on a Tuesday. We can't wait to get back to Alabama. We're over here in Phoenix. We're out at the Phoenix at the hotel pool, getting ready to fly out of here today. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, I want to talk about a parallel. Between Alabama football and Alabama basketball. Look, the Saban retirement aside, and that really was a sad thing, obviously, end of an era. How crazy is it? How crazy is it that Alabama football and Alabama basketball both made the Final Four? Both made the Final Four in a year that was supposed to be down. Let's remember, Alabama football, you lost Bryce Young and Will Anderson. You lost both coordinators. It was a year that was supposed to be down. But you won the SEC. You made the Final Four. You got to the Rose Bowl, and you played your butt off against Michigan. Yeah, you could have and should have and might have won the game. But you came up short in overtime. And really, really gave Michigan a hell of a game. Michigan went on, you all remember, and really kind of handled Washington. Not so tough in the championship game. How crazy is it, the parallel, Alabama basketball in what was a down year? You've lost Brandon Miller. You've lost Noah Clowney. You've lost all your assistants. Down year. You almost won the SEC. An injury here or there kept you from doing it. And then you make your way to the Final Four, improbably, and you play the eventual national champion in the Final Four, UConn, and you play them. Look, I think Alabama played them as well as anybody in the tournament. Probably better than anybody in the tournament. I mean, the score's tied with 12:56 to go. It didn't become a double-digit game until there was maybe 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. UConn was fully in control at halftime last night against Purdue. Now, does that make Alabama better or worse than Purdue? I don't like that. I think it's very matchup driven. And I think that it just proves that Nate Oats' game plan, even undermanned without a center all season long, is good enough to put Alabama into positions to win these games. I just find it such an interesting parallel that both the football and basketball team experienced very similar. We lost 2 of our best players. We lost very important coaches. We put on kind of an unexpectedly good season. And we both got to the Final Four, and we both gave the eventual national champion a real run for their money. I mean, look, it wasn't, I guess, a run for UConn's money. That might be crimson-colored glasses. Those guys are incredible. But Alabama played their tail off and really gave them, I think, a pretty good game. I think they gave them a pretty good game. Now, Dan Hurley last night said afterwards that Purdue was clearly the second best team in the country. And while I think a little bit of that is coach speak and a little bit of that is after championship game respect to your opponent, I wonder, Alabama, if you beat UConn, how would you have felt against Purdue? I mean, you saw what UConn did. They allowed Zach Edey to kind of get what he wanted to get or get what he could get around the rim, and they shut down pretty much everybody else, Lawyer and Smith and everybody else on the outside. And yeah, Alabama lost to Purdue in December. But man, oh man, if you could have shot the lights out, if you could have kept the hot shooting going in the second half, I think Alabama would have had a great chance to beat Purdue. I think they would have had a real good chance to beat Purdue. Now, obviously, that might be my own bias and my own kind of, I believe in the guys, because I did pick the guys to upset UConn, and that didn't happen. But, man, just interesting parallels between the Alabama football and basketball team. Oh, let's go to my next note. What's it like to be front runners in basketball? If you look after the game, you got the way too early polls. You got the way too early odds for next year's national championship. And holy smokes, Alabama's logo was all over the place in, Bet Online, at, Bet MGM, bet this, bet that. Oh, FanDuel Fantasy this, FanDuel Fan, whatever the case may be. You saw Alabama's next year's national title odds anywhere from the second highest odds all the way to the eighth highest odds. What? When in the world in your lifetime has Alabama basketball been, 4 or 5 months away from a season? Oh, yeah, 5, 6 months away from a season and been one of the top 10 favorites, top 5 favorites for a national championship? Absolutely absurd times we're living in following this Alabama basketball program. And lastly, on that point, let's get to our final polls. The coaches poll was released today. The final coaches poll was released today. I've got it right there. USA Today coaches poll put UConn 1, Purdue 2, Houston 3, and Alabama, your Alabama Crimson Tide 4. Now you've got Tennessee at 5. What are my other SEC teams? Tennessee at 5, Auburn at 17, Kentucky at 19, South Carolina at 23. So there's your SEC representation. And look, for a team, look at this poll. Look at this poll, the coaches poll. Alabama matches its highest ranking. Their highest ranking of the season was 4th. They were unranked in this poll before. There were periods during the season where Alabama was not even in the top 25 in this poll. Just crazy coaching, crazy good coaching, crazy, really incredible teamwork and togetherness and real maturity by the guys to band together and make this big run. Alabama jumps up 14 spots in the final coaches poll to finish at number 4. We're going to wait on the final AP poll, but I'd expect Alabama to finish somewhere in that 2 to 5 range. They're probably, you're going to put Purdue number 2. So I'd say they're going to be in the 3 to 6 range. And that's a pretty amazing year. Amazing year. Now, obviously, you want to end it with a national championship. That didn't happen, but very, very soon, I'll be covering a Final Four banner reveal in Coleman Coliseum for the first time ever, and you'll be able to put another number on the Elite Eight banner. So, just a special year, and we're going to cover everything about the wrap up at BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We're waiting to find out who's going to go in the transfer portal. Blake Byler's got your roster tracker right there at BamaCentral.com. You can check out who's got eligibility left, who doesn't, what people are leaning towards, and any movement is going to be right there on Blake Byler's roster tracker on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We're going to get out of here for the day. We're going to be hopping on a plane, and we'll be back in Alabama tomorrow. What we're going to leave you with is later in the afternoon, Alabama offensive and defensive players are speaking to the media. We're going to have Matthew Gibson and Will Miller over there covering that for us, and we'll see what some of these offensive and defensive players have to say on A-Day week. When we get back tomorrow, it's basically going to be all in on A-Day. We'll shift this program back to football for all the football junkies out there getting ready for A-Day. I'll come up with 2 or 3 or 4 different topics and storylines. Look, if you saw us on the program yesterday, you know that A-Day's not, spring practice, not really my favorite. You're 146 days away until kickoff. You got a long time to wait to get excited, but we will get excited about it with you guys tomorrow, talking about A-Day, getting ready for Saturday's event. Hopefully we'll see you in Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday, and you can always, if you see me, say hello. I'd love to meet you. You guys can have a great day. We're going to get on a plane and go back to Alabama today, and then we'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.